Hi, my name is Jennifer Dixon with Thrive Yoga and Wellness. Today we're going to talk about the Chaturanga. In yoga, the Chaturanga is a low push-up. So I know a lot of you guys are sitting here thinking, why is this a video about a push-up? Because we do push-ups basically from our very first PE class, right? Well, the yoga push-up, the Chaturanga, is different in a lot of ways. So if you're familiar with the push-up that you see in the gym or PE, your hands are usually out a little wider and your elbows go out pretty wide as well. Of course, you've got the tricep push-ups, and you've got the various arm placements and hand placements that you can do with a traditional boot camp style push-up. In yoga, you have one very specific posture that is the Chaturanga, the low plank, and it's very different than the push-up that you see or the low plank position that you see like in a boot camp class or in a PE class. And one of the things that I hear a lot as a teacher, as a yoga teacher, is, I hurt my elbows. These Chaturangas, they hurt my elbows. I'm here to tell you today that if we work and progress our way up, building the upper body strength that's necessary, because guess what? A Chaturanga, the full Chaturanga expression, is hard. It's using a whole bunch of your triceps, your shoulders, and your chest. But in addition to that, in order to hold this posture safely, you're engaging your core like it's nobody's business. So it's like a plank with a push-up all together on steroids. This is a very difficult posture. The other thing that is very different between a typical push-up that you'd see in a boot camp class and a Chaturanga is that your fingertips are almost more in line with your nipples. We all got them. So when you're in a boot camp class, your elbows they usually cue your fingertips in line with your shoulders. If you go back to some pretty old yoga photos, some of the original folks that came over to demonstrate their yoga postures, their fingertips were in line with their nipples. Their elbows were squeezing into the side, and they actually demonstrated a Chaturanga where your shoulders went below your elbows. I rarely teach that or endorse that in a class today unless I know that the student has sufficient upper body strength, and that's not just upper chest and arms, it's core. The Chaturanga is very core intensive. So if you would like to journey with me, I'm going to break down the Chaturanga. I'm going to demonstrate a Chaturanga. I'm going to show you like a military Morse type push-up. And then I'm going to talk about the steps that you can take to build up to the Chaturanga. Here's the thing. I don't recommend doing a whole bunch of Chaturangas without modifications until you've got the strength. Because if you don't do the Chaturangas correctly, you can hurt your elbows, you can hurt your shoulders, you can hurt your wrists. If you work your way up to the full expression of a Chaturanga, you can have the muscles in place, the strength in place to do this posture safely without having to worry about the fear of hurting yourself, causing the tendinitis, causing strains on these very small joints, but very important joints. So come with me. We're going to come to our mats, and we're going to come down to our hands and knees. Let's get started. So this is our tabletop position with your hands directly underneath your shoulders, your knees directly underneath your hips. This is a great way to start learning your Chaturanga, because even here, if you're not soup bowling out your back, you're engaging the belly. So in order to do this tabletop without hurting your back, your belly has to be engaged. So let me demonstrate what a Chaturanga looks like when you are up on your toes, the full expression. So normally when in a yoga class, you're going to come into what they call a vinyasa. So you start from downward facing dog, and then you come forward into your high plank. To prepare for your Chaturanga, you have to push forward. Now you see how my fingertips are more in line with my chest. Then you come down one long line of energy. Here's the thing, folks. When you move through a full vinyasa, when you do that high plank to low plank and then go into an upward facing dog, that's actually easier than doing a Chaturanga push-up. I'll show you again, and then we'll work on drills. So here I am in high plank. I push forward to get my fingertips in line with my chest. I'm looking forward. My head's not dropping down. I'm looking forward, coming down to this low plank. To come into up dog, I get to roll over onto the feet and round through the back. Chest is proud, rolling over downward facing dog. That's significantly easier than this chaturanga push-up, holding it all together. Because when you allow yourself to do that upward facing dog, it gives your belly a little bit of a break because your feet are pushing up to help you get into the upward facing dog. So these chaturanga push-ups are really, really, really stinking hard, but they're really great strength builders. And especially as women, we have to work really hard on building our upper body strength. That's to hold babies, it's to work around the house, work on the computer. We need to work on building muscle strength and bone density by working on these upper body drills. So here's the thing. You don't want to do that until you've got the belly strength and the shoulder strength to really get a good chaturanga in. So let me show you some drills. The first drill that I like to do is that tabletop, just to make sure that we know that we have a flat back, that tailbone's lengthening down through the spine. The next drill is you bring those knees back a little bit so they're now what? That would be your ankle, your knee to your hips forward is more like a 60-degree angle, right? So you have to make sure that when your knees are back from your hips, you can still get your chest forward enough to bring your fingertips in line with the fingertips in line with the chest. Goodness gracious. Look forward, and then you come down one long line of energy, and then come right back up. So if you can work this posture with your elbows squeezing in, fingertips in line with the chest, coming down, coming up, without bowing the back, then you know that you're progressing in your strength. This is what we don't want to see. This is not engaging any muscles to really do that. And in fact, if you bowl down and go down like this, this can be really crunchy in the low back. And I don't want to do any crunchies in my low back, right? So this robs your body of the opportunity to build strength as you move through these yoga push-ups. So again, you're not trying to come up like a snake. You're trying to come up like you've got a board flat against your back. So lengthen through the tailbone. That belly is in. You're looking forward, almost like you'd be looking at where the outlets are on your wall. Make sure your fingertips are in line with the chest, and you come down. Now, as soon as you start to have that belly drop, you don't go down any further. So you might just work on this plank right here, this long line of energy and a plank on your knees. And then maybe you go down an inch and then come back up. As soon as you go down and you can't hold that plank action in your back, you start to soup bowl or even round. You come back to this plank pose and then move to either your child's pose or your downward facing dog. What the point of the drills is to really isolate the appropriate muscles and build strength there. Because if you move through this chaturanga without engagement, you're not going to have the opportunity to build the strength that you need to progress safely in the full expression of the pose. However, if you move through your sequences on your knees, building strength, so maybe you start out just barely moving, and then you get all the way to the point where it's all the way where your elbows are maybe in line with the shoulders, and then you push back up, then you know that you're safely progressing and building the strength. So things that you don't want to do is you don't want your hands too far forward, as I'll demonstrate that. That really, really, really can be tweaky on the elbows, which is not awesome. You also don't want your hands really, really, really wide with your elbows out. That's the military push-up, right? If you notice, when we do a chaturanga, the yoga push-up, my elbows are hugging into my ribs. It's almost like you're trying to give yourself a hug with your elbows. That's kind of, think about that. Because if you're coming into this yoga push-up with your elbows out, that can be really tweaky when your fingertips are down low and your elbows are out. You want to make sure that when you're doing your chaturanga, fingertips in line with the chest and elbows squeezing in. So we're not talking about like your chest is falling into your arms. We're talking about a nice grazing, your elbows grazing the sides of the body. Now remember, you want to have those fingertips more in line with your chest than you want them in line with your shoulders. This you're going to feel in the triceps, which is great for the granny wave, right? So another drill that you can do to help build that body strength, besides holding this plank and besides moving all in one long line of energy, is you can start from the ground and just work on pushing your way up. So it's kind of like a reverse push-up or a reverse chaturanga. So I'm going to come down all the way to the ground. I'm going to make sure my fingertips are in line with my chest. I'm going to squeeze those elbows in, bring those toes flat onto the mat. Now, the secret yoga trick here is to engage your legs so much that your thighs come up off the mat. So if your thighs are hanging out here on the mat and you're going to push up from there, then you know that your muscles are not engaged enough to push you up one long line of energy. But if I'm pressing my toes into the mat so much that I can get my thighs off the mat, and ladies, I don't want any excuses about big thighs. You can get your thighs off the mat. You can get your knees off the mat. You can lengthen through the tailbone. This is a lot of work. Hanging out and just doing this drill is a lot of work. You're going to feel it in your belly and you're going to feel it in your thighs. So once you get to that point, you can come off and rest. You're going to bring those knees to your chest and try to do that same engagement. Toes to the mat, pressing in, get those thighs off the mat, lengthen through the tailbone. Now bring your knees down with that same thigh engagement, same belly engagement. Push yourself up. That reverse chaturanga, if you guys noticed, I had my fingertips still in line with my chest, my elbows pressing into the sides. Belly is in, tailbone's down, my knees are on the mat. Pushed up, one long line of energy. That's the exact same motion that you would do. Here I am, pressing into the mat, thighs off the mat, tailbone lengthening together. Your butt cheeks are kind of squeezing together too, ladies. So squeeze everything, look forward, and check it out. One long line of energy the whole way up. Now, if you can't do that, if your butt comes up first or if your shoulders come up first, I'll demonstrate both. Come back down to your knees and keep practicing. So this is what you don't want to see. All right, here I am. I'm going. And then my shoulders come up first. And then my butt comes up. That's crunchy in the low back. It's not awesome. I don't recommend it. You're going to hurt your back and it's going to hurt your elbows. So let's do this with your booty coming up first. Coming down, one long line of energy. Pressing into the mat. Thighs are off the mat. Butt cheeks squeezing together. Elbows squeezing into the sides. Oh, I'm going to do this. And the first thing that comes up is your butt. That is also not engaging through the core enough, right? That's going to get these bigger leg muscles involved. And this, we're trying to work the upper body and the core. So what you want to do, I'll demonstrate it one more time. We're going to come down to our knees, look forward, hold those elbows in, hold them in. Press down into the mat. Get those, first the shins, then the knees, then the quads. Lengthen through the belly, the tailbone rather. Get the belly engaged. Looking forward, fingertips in line with the nipples, elbows squeezing into the chest. Think to yourself, I can do this. Push off. One long line of energy. When you can do that with one long line of energy, so your butt's not up first, your butt's not coming up last, that's when you know you're ready to come into the chaturanga from the high plank position. So here we are in high plank, push forward, chaturanga. And then when you're starting to build the strength from that reverse chaturanga, that reverse push-up, and this is something I actually do quite regularly. I skip the upward facing dog and just work on the chaturanga push-up, because for me it's more important to build this upper body strength and this core strength than it is to squeeze in an extra back bend, because an upward facing dog is a back bend, and build the strength here because a back bend can come later on in the practice. It is more important for me to build strength than it is for me to work on that opening up and those back bends, especially early on in a practice. I want you to grow in your yoga practice and grow safely. I want you to build the muscles that you need so that you can stay safe and you can keep coming back and practicing with me until we're all 75. Oh, heck, we're going to say we're 90. Until the next time, this is Jennifer Dixon with Thrive Yoga and Wellness, and I can't wait to see you on your mat. Namaste.